the MindCep Podcast. This is your host, Alex Muir, helping you flex your mind, body, and soul. In today's episode 81, we're going to speak with Elke Scholz. Elke Scholz is an MA, RP, REACE, is a registered psychotherapist, an internationally registered expressive art consultant and educator, and an internationally certified EMDR therapist. She is the well-known author of the third edition, Loving Your Life, containing over 40 creative exercises as an ebook and paperback, forward by Kate Donahue. She is also an affiliate author for Project Happiness. Her work includes creative anti-anxiety and wellness kits for employees, youth at risk, and seniors in managing anxiety and depression. For over 35 years, Elke has helped people and runs her private therapy practice in Bracebridge, Muskoka. She has spoken and facilitated at conferences, on radio, and on TV. She is a co-chair on the board for IEATA, International Expressive Art Therapy Association. And please welcome Elke Scholz to the podcast. And this episode is brought to you by RadioGuestList.com, the #1 free radio guest, podcast, and talk show guest expert interview booking service on the internet. This episode is brought to you by PodcastGuest.com, connecting podcasters with great guests. Podcasters. Find relevant experts and other podcasters to be guests on your podcast. Experts, guests, and more. Get booked on great podcasts to expand your reach and audience. PodcastGuest.com connects podcasters with experts, authors, and other podcasters to be guests on their podcasts. Disclaimer. All information provided by Alex Muir is of general nature and is spoken from Alex Muir's and his guests' personal experiences and personal opinions on the topics related to fitness, health, and education only. No information is to be taken as medical or other health advice pertaining to any specific health or medical condition. You agree that use of this information is at your own risk and hold Alex Muir harmless from any and all losses, liabilities, injuries, or damages resulting from any and all claims. And we're live. Welcome back to the MindCep Podcast. This is your host, Alex Muir, helping you flex your mind, body, and soul. Today's episode 81, we're going to be speaking with Elke Scholz. Elke, welcome to the MindCep Podcast. Happy to have you on the show. And I'm very excited to have you on, especially to talk about something that a lot of people might have, or maybe a lot of people might be talking about, especially, ever since, COVID-19 happened, is anxiety, managing our anxiety. What is anxiety? And maybe how we can handle it, how we can manage, and maybe our relationship with that word better. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk about this. For sure, it's an issue.
Yeah. And Elke, let's start off by talking about your book, The Anxiety Warrior. I love the title. What made you want to write this book, and how did that specific title come about?
Well, the reason I started this journey was because of my own anxiety. And I didn't discover that I had anxiety until my late 30s because we didn't really talk about it when we were kids. And then what happened with my private practice and my clients is that it seemed like anxiety was coming from many different areas. And I discovered 11 different places. So that's what makes it so mysterious. Like one day we might nail it and go, okay, this is why I'm anxious. Okay, boom, got it handled. It goes away. Other times it's a sickening feeling and crippling for the whole day. And it's just awful. And you don't know where it's coming from. And then you wonder, what's wrong with you. So that inspired the book. And I started doing different talks. I felt like I was repeating myself a lot in my private practice. So I went out to the schools, senior centers, different groups, and, I believe in handouts. So I was giving all these handouts out. And one day I just went, there's a book here. I had already written a book. So I called up my editor and I already had 63 pages for him on the hop. So
Wow.
there we went.
Holy smokes. And that's just
And then
from yeah.
yeah, and the reason I called it anxiety warrior is not that we go to battle. The warrior is an archetype. It's a yoga warrior, and it's not about casualties. It's about overcoming, embracing, and that's what I'm hoping we'll talk about today.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Because, for myself, I can tell you for a really long time, I struggled with anxiety and, just not feeling like I was enough, lower self-esteem. And so I started, I'm the kind of person that I'm like, hey, I know I feel this way. Um, I want to find out how I can, I know initially my mindset was, how can I fix this? But then my mindset shifted to how can I, what are some activities that I can do to help me just manage it better? And something that I discovered, right, through all my research and reading books was I started seeing this common thread of developing a meditation practice. And it kept coming up, and it happened in 2017 where I was just, because my background's in finance, and the industry as a whole, it can be, there can be some quite stressful times.
Right.
Because you're managing people's money and it's, and you want to do, everything to the best of your ability, but, some days are just a little bit tougher than others. And sometimes there can be a pattern of that. And so I discovered the Headspace app in 2017, and I was just started with like very small sessions, just three minutes a day, just like a guided meditation. And
yeah,
and at the time it was free. Now you got to pay for it. It's like as a subscription, but just that, just being able to kind of unplug just even for a few moments was very difficult for me, because you know how a lot of people can get in their head and then they don't know how to get out of your head, or just, stop those racing thoughts and thinking about what you're thinking about. So by doing
right,
that,
right,
yeah, so, right.
Sometimes, yeah, for sure. And I've got people that get anxious about being anxious.
Right. And it's just that, that continuous cycle. So I was like, how can I break this pattern, this pattern of thinking in this cycle? So over time, like those thoughts are always still there. I still have my anxious moments, but so what is that? That's 6 years. So it's taken me 6 years to get to the point I'm at now. And I started with those 3-minute sessions, and now it's at like up to half an hour a day. And like, it's made the world of a difference. And I've transitioned from the Headspace app to an free app called Oak, and it also does guided and unguided meditations. And it's been a lifesaver for, just improving the mental health and not getting so caught up in, like, feeling over anxious and stuff like that. But, that's just, I just wanted to mention that it's, there is definitely some ways to help with that. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I had anxiety in the past so bad that, I couldn't function for half the day. And now I barely have any episodes of it. So we can manage it. It is part of our human condition. Anxiety is saying about being present. And that is a very powerful way to manage anxiety, because there's strategies that do bring us in the present moment, and because then we're not worrying about the past, we're not worrying about the present or the future, and we're right in the present, and usually that is okay. And one of the other things with anxiety is that I encourage people to pull it in. We try to push it away, or you mentioned it earlier that at the beginning you wanted to fix it, get over it. We think something is wrong with us, and if we bring it in and try and understand it, that changes so much. One, we're listening to ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's our bodies trying to communicate to us for some reason. And we can go over some of these 11 sources.
Yeah.
And then we can manage it, because if we try to just band-aid it or push it away or distract ourselves, it's still there hovering somewhere and wanting to pop out again.
No, absolutely. And I feel like you talked about it, pulling in the anxiety. That's kind of the stage that I just started to get to within the last, I'd say, 2 years. Is like I understand kind of where the pain, or the maybe not necessarily the pain now, because it used to feel as if it was pain, but now it's transitioned to more, this is more discomfort. So I got past that
That's
pain
right.
point, right? Like you said, you're pulling it in. And now I'm being more observant of the anxiety or the stressors or
Right.
things like that. I'm not being as first I was like, no, this shouldn't be happening. This isn't who I am. This isn't part of me. Right. But that's
Yeah,
not
that's
right. Right.
natural. That's so
Yeah.
natural because we're
Yeah.
we're we're fed this thing of, what happiness is, and we have these high expectations, a lot of media, telling us what we need to be or achieve. And really, it's about being present, being in nature, being aware. I love that word. You said that
Yeah.
too. And meditation, good for you because it's not always easy. And maybe we can talk about some of these strategies to get you there. Sometimes, we have, instead of sitting there breathing, we might have to go for a walk, or we might have
Yeah.
to pile wood or rake leaves or do something physical to slow us down and then meditate. And I don't know how that is for you. It sounds like you gradually built that process. And the other thing is to practicing gratitude is when we're grateful, we can't be anxious.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're happy about life or grateful about what's going on in your life, then the anxiety does dampen or go away as well. So there are different strategies. So we can talk a little bit about, what anxiety is, and it shows up in so many different ways. And I think in some of my talks, people would ask me and say, well, what's the difference of anxiety and stress? And I don't know if it's different. It just shows up in different ways. Like we have the typical butterflies, maybe the panic attacks where we have the chest pain, the sweating, or the jitters. It shows up other ways too, like tension, either being hungry or not hungry, maybe migraines. It can show up as IBS. It can show up as lack of concentration or memory problems, maybe nail biting or hair pulling. There's lots of different ways. And it could just be a discomfort. And I think you mentioned that too, this uncomfortable feeling. I mean, I know what grief feels like and anger, but anxiety has it's just, it just feels terrible.
Yeah. Does not feel good, that's for sure.
No, and there's a bit of mystery with it, and I think that's the part that can, sometimes have us feeling hopeless or feeling dread, overwhelmed, insecure. And so really, it's not a great feeling at all. And so we've got to look at, where does it come from? And the other thing too is understanding the difference of fear versus anxiety versus worry. So fear is something that's actually threatening you. So something like I was walking, in our country trails, and a skunk started to chase me. This is actually true.
Oh my
And
God.
it was. And I was running, and it was growling and thumping, and that is a signal that they're, spray. So, and usually they're not around in the daytime. So I must have been inadvertently near a den, and I ran in the woods, and this little thing was chasing me. And finally I got away. So that's fear. Now, what is interesting, a few times after that, I was hesitant and I would say a little bit anxious. So anxiety is anticipatory. So it's
Right.
something that our body is anticipating. There's this unease, this agitation and tension. And so it's different than fear. And then worry, of course, is what we call it, nickname is negative meditation. It tends to be, overly concerned, overthinking, panic brewing, cyclical and looping thoughts. So that would be worry. So they're a little bit different, and maybe in helping, people understand that, then they go, oh yeah, I'm worrying, I'm not anxious right now. So hopefully.
No, I like that. I like how you classify those like the kind of the main air. What did you name like fear, anxiety, and worry as? Was there a specific term or
Sorry, what
what
did
did
I name?
yeah, yeah. Because did you nickname like those three anything or did you just
Oh
like
yeah, a worry is a nicknamed as negative meditation.
that's right.
Well, because it's interesting, we talk about positive thinking or manifesting or making mantras and affirmations. Well, worry is the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's usually concerned or negative kind of thinking, tormenting. And there's a great exercise for that. And I'll maybe plug it in right now is that you can set your phone, and this will be a challenge, but for 30 minutes, just sit there and write out all your worries. And
Right.
the reason it works, this is such a powerful exercise because if listeners, if you're finding that you're worrying all the time, can be exhausting. So the deal is you talk to your brain and you sit down, put a timer on your phone for 30 minutes. You just write out all your worries. And if, let's say, in 15 minutes you've got them written out, well, write them out again and again till the 30 minutes is done. Because the deal is when you're done the 30 minutes, you close that book, put it away somewhere. It's not to share or anything like that. And you're done. You tell your brain, that's it. You had a focused time, but you don't get to invade my thoughts the rest of the day. So, the deal is you have 23 and a half hours worry free. So the way it works, it works really well. And it's funny because the brain kind of an organ and it doesn't really believe you right away. So, you might be distracted or maybe cooking a meal or driving somewhere and in comes a worry. And you just tell your brain, no, you don't get to do that until tomorrow. So the way it works is that you keep it up for a couple days. And this is so fascinating because there's a real resistance. Your brain won't want to do the exercise. and you stop worrying. So I use this with my clients. I didn't make it up. It's a CBT exercise. It's been around for a long time and it works so well. And some people do the exercise maybe 3 or 4 days, some people a week, and then the worrying stops because the brain's going, no, I don't want to sit down for 30 minutes. I don't want to do this.
Oh my gosh.
And it stops. And the brain, fascinating, happens is the brain comes up with some solutions for some of these things that we're worried about, and it will drop the things we can't do anything about. So really a fascinating exercise. It works really well. And it is in the book if people, didn't catch it. And I guess they can listen to it again. So yeah. And then the way it works too is after your brain, you've kind of mastered it. You might go on for months or years. And if it happens again that you worry, you just write everything down. So there's the odd time I still use it where I find, maybe I'm worrying about things where the thoughts are coming in repetitively. And I just sit down, I do the journaling, make the list, and yeah, it works.
It's like categorizing your fears or your worries on paper. It's like very captivating. Yeah, because then they don't have power over you.
Huge.
You get to observe them and look at them objectively on paper.
Absolutely. It is very powerful, Alex. And by writing them down, they're not in your head anymore. And your brain is almost relieved. It's for whatever reason. Well, I do psychotherapy. I have a private practice, and we don't always have a reason for these things. Like some people think, we've got to figure this out, or there's a reason we're worrying. Not always.
Yeah.
Not always are we going to figure it out. And as much as we're, scientists and explorers and we're doing all this research, we don't always know. And so these exercises kind of relieve the brain. And when we give the brain another strategy, it goes, okay, cool. I'll go along with that.
No, definitely.
And it works. Yeah.
I really like that strategy. It's very practical, and I know anyone can use it that has our listeners, that anyone that's listening to this that has been trying to find a different strategy that's practical, that simple to do. This is a great way to capture your fears and write them out and set a timer. I love it.
It is, and it worked really, really well. And yeah, so it is super cool. And you know what? I am so practical. I think it's my nature. And with all this research that I've done is when things work and they're practical, they're accessible, and I grab onto it. And that's what I bring to my clients and the book, because I believe in that and I believe in success. And those things, when they are accessible, are successful. Just what you mentioned, that anyone can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And many people may not realize they're experiencing anxiety, and instead dismiss it as something else. What are some common misconceptions
Right.
about anxiety that you often encounter, and how do you help individuals recognize and address it?
Well, it's interesting. That's a great question because, you can almost put it to anything unpleasant. So if people are generally not feeling happy about life, they're restless, that isn't always seen as anxiety. Migraines aren't always seen as anxiety, or stomach aches, perhaps weight loss or weight gain, teeth grinding, they're not always, or something like lack of patience. If a child has an anxiety, or even us, if we've got anxiety, let's say we have trouble concentrating or focusing, that's a sign of anxiety.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed, or really maybe having trouble, reading maybe that paragraph over and over again, whether it's a manual or a document, that could be a sign of anxiety. So that's possible. So one of the things, another great strategy that I teach people and share, and it's in the book too, and it goes along with this idea of awareness. And if there's two words that people would glean from this podcast or the book, is awareness and practice. Just massive. And picking and choosing different exercises. And one of the ones that I think is really great, and anybody that can count from 0 to 10 can use this one. So, and not to insult anybody out there. So 0 is no disturbance. So you're in your body. So you're checking into your body, and 0 is no disturbance. So that could be, you could be relaxed, perhaps maybe you're meditating or not, or maybe, upon waking, wherever your 0 is. And it's not a test, and everybody's number system is going to be a little bit different, and that doesn't matter. It's more what feels right to you. So 10 is you're out of your mind, just can't put a thought together, out of your window of tolerance, really uncomfortable. So 0 to 10. One of the things that we can do is just kind of take a moment, and we'll take a moment right now and just notice where you are right now from 0 to 10. And Alex and I will do it, and listeners as well.
Sounds good.
So just taking. So where are you if you would give it a number right now, 0 to 10?
I'd probably say 0, because or maybe a 1 because I'm doing the podcast, because I'm like aware of like how loud I'm being with my fiance in the kitchen right now, and I'm in the office. But every time I do a podcast, I get very present because it's something I'm very passionate about, and I love listening to people's stories. All my guests that I have on, they always have so many amazing stories. So because it's a creative outlet in times of stress, that's another strategy that I've used to handle my anxiety, is getting creative or exercising, like you were mentioning. Like,
nice. That's great.
Yeah.
So and for myself right now, I'm not a 0, and I wouldn't want to be, because then I wouldn't be as excited as I am to be with you. So I'm probably a 1, between a 1 and a 2, which for me is not unpleasant at all. It's more a state of excitement. So I'm not at a 0. So a number for me, and I'll just give an example, and maybe you can relate to this as well, is, so when I get to a 4, for me, is that starts to be uncomfortable, then I start pulling out my strategies. And that's pretty rare these days. It used to be a lot worse. However, when I'm around a 4, then I'm going to, start going through my checklist. What's going on with me? Did I eat something? How was my sleep? What's on my plate right now? And different things like that. So, and then I start using some strategies. So whether that's different nutrients or, rescue remedy or something like that. So because I don't want to go to the 5, 6, 7, and those can quickly go to a 10 for me. And everybody's different. I met a woman, she loved being at an 8.
Oh, wow.
I went, okay. I know that wasn't good for me, but she said she thrived on anxiety. And for her, it was an adrenaline hit. So everybody's different, and her numbering system, and no, there's no right or wrong. It's just knowing your own numbering system. And the reason for this is, so we go through life, and generally, and I'm just saying this generally, and I know this from my clients, is we go through life and we're not paying attention. It's kind of back to what you said, is, we're not perhaps as present as we could be, and we need to be more aware. And when we're more aware, that's when we can make changes.
Yeah.
So it's just as simple as, getting up in the morning, deciding what you're going to wear. Just kind of be with it and notice your body. Notice your body as you move through the household, or notice your body as you're driving, or however you commute to work. And again, it can be so different for everybody. And, maybe if it's heavy traffic, or maybe you're driving country roads, what is it like when you go in a grocery store? Just notice these things. And it's really interesting, because you're going to start being really aware of how some things are spiking and some things are calming that maybe you weren't expecting. So it's a super exercise. I have my clients do it, and it doesn't take any extra time.
No, absolutely.
So
And your book aims to empower individuals to become anxiety warriors. Could you share a success story of someone
right.
who transformed from a feeling like a victim of anxiety to an empowered individual, and how they achieve that transformation?
Sorry, was that? Yeah, missed the first part of that.
Oh yeah, sorry. So your book aims to empower individuals to become anxiety warriors. Could you share a
Right.
success story of someone who transformed from feeling like a victim of anxiety to an empowered individual, and how they achieve that transformation?
Wow. To pick one. Um, you know what? Maybe I'll expand on my own story, and then I'll
Yeah.
think of other people's stories as well, because I have different stories with some of the different categories.
Yeah.
So when and this may help people too, is when I was a child, I had migraines and stomach aches. So that's how I didn't know I had anxiety. However, I did. And whether there was a big test or project due, that's how my body would react. Um, my mother was tolerant, my father wasn't. And as a teenager, I stuttered. I still do a little bit, because I have very mild dyslexia. And of course, with the anxiety, they go back and forth and sometimes exasperate each other. And then, of course, when we're highly sensitive, we're prone to anxiety. So that's a lot of fun too. Um, so yeah, and it's not a bad thing. I talk about it in the book. I didn't coin the phrase. It was coined in the 80s. It's a character trait, and not too many people talk about it, but about 20 to 25% of the population has that character trait. And we're prone to anxiety. As much as it's a gift, it's also one that makes us very sensitive to our surroundings. So I actually struggled a lot as an adult, and in my early adulthood, because I thought I was hiding a secret, and because I would have these powerful, terrible feelings, and I didn't really understand them until I read a book for somebody else, and it was on anxiety. And when I was reading it, I went, "Oh, this is all about me." I started to recognize these symptoms, and that's really started a process and an exploration. And the other thing that I noticed was that there was this time I was driving and I was in a good mood, and then in 20 minutes I wasn't. And I really noticed my thoughts, and I just went, I'm just going to change my thoughts. And so I did, and I was able to create a good mood again. So these are some powerful things that happened, and so I wanted to expand on that so I could bring that to the clients, and of course even practice it better myself.
I love it.
So now, yeah, and now I have to say, when people say, "How are you doing?" I can say, "I feel great." This is the best. I feel the best I've ever had in my whole life. And if you do struggle with anxiety, you've got to know there's strategies that work. And the way I created the book is like a smorgasbord, because we're all different. So this isn't a cookie cutter formula. Our situations are all different. Our bodies are all different. Our environments are all different. So the strategies, it's really about looking at some of these things and how do they affect you. And I think we have a little bit of time to go over some of these, right?
No, actually, we just got just a few minutes left there, but wanted to say I really appreciated our time tonight, Elke. And how can our listeners find you or reach out to you, and where is the best spot to get your book, purchase your book? I saw it's on Audible as well.
Yes, yeah. So the easiest is I created a website just for and it's called anxietywarrior.ca. So if you go there, there's lots of free resources, the book, wherever your favorite bookseller is, you can find the book, as well as the Audible for sure. And so that's probably the easiest. And I know you mentioned about, what's coming up and new is I created a webinar called Energy Rich, and it's about identifying what alivens your energy and feeds you and what brings it down. And that's another way of growing your passion and vitality, which, of course, when you have vitality, you don't have anxiety.
I love that. That's awesome. An energy rich webinar.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. Everyone needs that.
Yeah.
And one last.
It's been amazing.
When did you start that?
I developed it last year, and I've given live courses. However, the webinar is available, so people can do it on their own, or they can do a live at some point.
Awesome. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Elke, and I'm going to get this audio sent out to you tomorrow, and I'm going to do up an audiogram, and I'll send you all the sample social media posts to share with your clients and your audience. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Well, thank you, Alex. And I just really hope it helps people. That's why I do this. I'm so passionate about it.
Oh, yeah.
We all deserve to have a great life.
Absolutely. Everyone deserves to have a great life and to, find ways to change their psyche.
Absolutely.
You take care, and thanks for joining me on the MindCep Podcast tonight.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Bye.
MindCep's mission is to empower 30+ million listeners worldwide to achieve optimal mental and physical health through engaging podcasts, inspiring positive change for future generations. Dear listeners, I thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the MindCep Podcast. This is your host, Alex Muir, helping you flex your mind, body, and soul. And I just want to start off by saying, I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to this podcast. I appreciate your feedback on my episodes and following the show. And I would like your feedback as well in the form of a short rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Spotify Podcast now has a rating and review section. So I would love your feedback on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, to help me attract great guests and to help me further the show and develop the show and improve the show. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed this episode. And again, you can reach out to me to give additional feedback on my blog. That's alexandermuir.com/blog. You can reach out to me on through my Instagram, through Facebook. All my links are in the show notes. And again, I appreciate you and thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed that special guest series episode brought to you by podcastguest.com and radioguest.com. If you'd like to reach out to me, get to know me, or my guests, you can do so at my blog, That's alexandermuir.com. That's ALEX, Amazon Mike, UIR.com. And then you go under my blog section, and it has all my recent podcast episodes and prior episodes with my guests. And if you'd like to reach out to me on another platform, I'm also on Instagram, Facebook. You can DM me on Facebook or on Instagram. And you can leave a short review if you enjoy the episodes. Leave 5 stars, rate, review, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I appreciate you all. Thank you all for listening, and see y'all next time.